Ava had never thought she would find herself in this kind of situation. She had always prided herself on being loyal, dedicated, and loving to her husband, Ethan. Their life together had been a comfortable one, filled with shared dreams, gentle evenings on the porch, and small sweet gestures that made their marriage feel secure. But lately, something inside her felt restless. It started subtly, an emptiness she couldn't quite name. Ethan was always busy with work, traveling more than he used to, coming home late with that tired, absent smile. Ava kept telling herself it was normal, that every marriage had its seasons. But deep inside, she longed for something, anything, that would make her feel alive again. One warm Saturday afternoon, Ava decided to visit the new art studio in town. Painting had always been her private escape, something she gave up after marrying Ethan because life got too busy. The smell of oils and fresh canvas pulled her in like a gentle hand on her heart. As she stepped inside, her eyes met a man standing by the window, painting with such intensity it looked as if he was pouring his soul onto the canvas. His name was Daniel. Daniel was different. He had that gentle chaos around him, unshaven jawline, paint-splattered jeans, and those deep blue eyes that seemed to see right into her. Ava felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. She told herself she was just there for the art, to rediscover a part of herself she had lost. But the first time he looked at her, really looked, she felt her breath catch. "Would you like to try?" Daniel asked, handing her a brush. Ava hesitated, her fingers trembling as she took it. When their hands touched, she felt warmth rush through her body, a warmth that spread to her lips and made her bite them, as if she could stop the feeling from escaping. She spent hours at the studio, losing herself in strokes of color and Daniel's quiet encouragement. He stood close, his hand guiding hers, his voice low and intimate. When he laughed at her mistakes, she laughed too, so freely that it startled her. That evening, when she got home, she carried a piece of Daniel with her, like a secret burning inside. Ethan noticed she was different. He asked if she was okay, and she always said she was fine. But her heart had started to drift, like a leaf on a quiet stream, away from the man she had once thought she would love forever. Days turned into weeks. Ava found excuses to go to the studio. She told Ethan she needed me time, and he, distracted and exhausted, encouraged her. With each visit, Daniel felt less like a stranger and more like a safe place she had been searching for. One late afternoon it happened. She had just finished a painting, her hair tied up messily, paint on her cheeks. Daniel leaned in to see her work, so close she could feel his breath on her skin. She bit her lip again, unable to hide the rush of feelings flooding through her. "You're beautiful when you paint," he whispered. Her heart pounded so loud, she was sure he could hear it. His hand came up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and before she could think, he kissed her. Softly at first, then deeper, as though he had been waiting his whole life for that moment. Ava knew she should stop him, push him away, run back to the safety of her marriage. But she didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she let her lips part under his, let her hands rest on his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heart matching hers. Time slowed down, and for that fleeting moment, all she felt was alive. When they finally pulled apart, her head spun with guilt and excitement. Daniel touched his forehead to hers, breathing heavily. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough. But she shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "Don't be," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't want you to stop." They sat together in silence, their breathing the only sound between them. Ava knew what she had done. She had crossed a line she never thought she would. But in Daniel's arms, she felt seen, cherished, and utterly real. That night, she went home to Ethan. He was sitting on the couch, a beer in hand, watching a game he didn't really care about. She watched him for a long time, her heart aching with a guilt so sharp it felt like it would split her in two. "How was your day?" Ethan asked, not looking away from the TV. "It was good," Ava lied, her voice so small she barely recognized it. She went to the bathroom, turned on the shower, and cried until her body shook. She didn't know who she was anymore. She hated herself for betraying Ethan but couldn't deny that something inside her had awakened, something she couldn't silence. In the days that followed, she tried to avoid the studio, tried to forget Daniel's touch and the way his lips felt on hers. But every night, when Ethan turned his back to her in bed and fell into his deep, work-heavy sleep, she felt lonelier than ever. The house felt like a museum of their shared past, a past that now seemed so far away. One rainy afternoon, Daniel called her. Just hearing his voice made her legs weak. "I miss you," he said simply. Ava closed her eyes, fighting tears. I can't do this," she whispered. "I know," he replied, his voice sad but calm. "But I wanted you to know that you're not invisible. You're not just someone's wife. You're you. And you deserve to feel alive." Those words shattered her. She hung up and sat on the kitchen floor, staring at her wedding ring. She knew she had a choice to make, a choice that would hurt someone no matter what. That evening, she confessed everything to Ethan. She told him about Daniel, about the kiss, about the emptiness that led her there. Ethan listened, silent and pale. She saw the pain in his eyes, a pain deeper than she had ever imagined she could cause. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Ethan finally said, his voice shaking. "I don't expect you to," Ava replied, her voice breaking. "But I couldn't keep lying to you. You deserve more than that." They spent that night talking, crying, and sitting in the heavy silence between them. There were no easy answers, no promises of healing. But in that raw, painful honesty, something real began to form again. Ava didn't know if they would make it. She didn't know if Ethan would ever be able to look at her the same way. But she knew she had to confront the truth of who she had become, even if it meant losing everything she thought she needed. Days turned into weeks. They started therapy, small steps, slow words, and 1,000 tiny moments of vulnerability. Ava stopped seeing Daniel, though his memory lingered like a ghost in the corners of her mind. Sometimes at night, she would lie awake, touching her lips where Daniel had kissed her, feeling the echo of that spark. But when she looked over at Ethan, saw the effort in his eyes, the pain, and the slow rebuilding of trust, she knew what she wanted to fight for. Ava learned that love wasn't always about passion or perfection. Sometimes it was about choosing to stay, to mend, and to forgive, even when it hurt the most. And in that difficult, messy process, she began to find herself again. In the end, Ava realized she didn't bite her lip because she wanted Daniel to stop. She did it because she was terrified of what it meant to truly feel alive again. And while the road back to Ethan was long and uncertain, it was the only road that felt true. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, she felt honest, with herself and with the man she had once promised to love forever. And that honesty, though it came at a price, was the first real step back home.